So think of this as a skill building kind of thing of what we can do to make our practice, whenever we use media, more inclusive. And for that purpose, we have our guest here today, is Gabby Mendonca. She will give a little talk about what it's like to rely on inclusive design, but then we also dive into our workshop, and specifically we're thinking about alt text for images and as well as audio description for moving images. In that sense, I think I will just pass it over to Gabby. Gabby was a student at St. Francis College not too long ago, and I'm so excited that she's back here because she clearly is the expert on all the things that we're talking about today. So Gabby, I'll leave it and take it over to you. Take the room.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm really excited to be here to talk to you all. So as Martina recently just said, I just graduated from St. Francis back in May. I was actually a comm major, and throughout my time here, I learned a lot about media, and it also kind of helped me in my everyday life because I'm on social media and I'm also a content creator. So I am completely blind, and I rely on things like alt text and audio descriptions because it allows myself and other blind people to feel included in the world and on social media. A lot of the ways that media has really helped me is that, you know, it's been really great that there are communities out there on social media, and a lot of people do rely on those things to really help them in their everyday life. I find that images, I sometimes feel excluded as well as other blind people because a lot of people don't use alt text and they don't necessarily know what alt text is. So the ways that it's been really difficult for me is that it's sometimes really hard to access specific media. As a student at St. Francis, I struggled a lot with a lot of my professors because I really wasn't able to access a lot of the materials that I needed in class and that were being presented. So using things that help me as a blind person, it's really important for me to have easier access to things like being on social media and just living life every single day. I use a screen reader called VoiceOver, which allows me to navigate through my phone, and I have an iPhone and I can text, I go on Instagram, I use TikTok even though it's really not that accessible, but I'm able to do all of these things because I use VoiceOver, and that's how I'm able to really kind of, you know, just do everything else like all of you would. The only thing is that I just can't see, so I kind of had to adapt a lot of the things that I do to make it more accessible for me. That's different for a lot of people because there's so many people that rely on different accessibility features, whether it be on their phones, their laptops, their tablets, whatever it may be. And so something you should know about screen readers, they can be very annoying. They, like VoiceOver, can sometimes be really glitchy, so that is really difficult when you're either on, you know, using media and just kind of using your phone and your devices each and every day. I find that I really do think that, you know, when it comes to using alt text on social media, I'm pretty sure all of you have Instagram or some other social media that could possibly be out there, Twitter, TikTok. But with alt text, you want to make sure that when you're describing your pictures and your videos, that it's descriptive and detailed, but you don't use super lengthy descriptions. So bad alt text, right? Bad alt text could simply be something like, okay, like there's a group of students in a classroom. That's great. It kind of tells you the setting and, you know, what's going on, but you want to make sure that you're kind of saying, okay, this is a meme, or this is a quote, or this is just a picture, or you know, something like that. So I think that media is really inclusive in the fact that it allows so many people to connect in different ways and allows all of us to be content creators and have access to things of that nature. But for blind people, it's not always accessible. Like I mentioned, TikTok is one of the least accessible apps that they have out there. And it makes it really hard for someone like myself who wants to be able to use it to actually be able to use it. That's why I'm really excited to actually talk to you all about it, because I'm sure that you have some comm majors in here and other majors who are not necessarily in comm but are maybe using social media for other purposes. So I wanted to talk to you all about why that's so important to have your media be more accessible. Things that you should really take into consideration is that even though you may not have someone who is blind that's like a follower of yours, there's a chance that someone who is completely blind could possibly come across your content. So even though you're just posting just for the sake of posting, it's also really important to include other people and have an open mind when it comes to, you know, posting on social media and being a content creator or being a filmmaker. So that kind of leads into what else I want to say, which is talking about audio descriptions, because audio descriptions allow blind people to watch TV shows and movies and films. I will say that for the most part, for a lot of like short films that you find out there is no audio description that's provided. However, for movies and TV shows on Netflix, they usually have audio description, and audio description can be really great or not so great. So for the filmmakers in here, whether you're, I don't know what year you're all in, are you guys like seniors, juniors? Senior? Okay. Junior? Okay, so eventually, and I'm sure as of right now, you're probably working on, like, for the seniors, you're probably working on like your senior, what is it, the senior comp class? Yeah, so for that, there's a chance that you have to provide some sort of media, either a film, a podcast, and for that, you can start implementing the idea of using alt text and audio descriptions, because I don't know, and I don't think that there is any other like blind student, not from my knowledge, that is currently at SFC, but it's still good if you want to put that film out into the world. It's good to start using that that sort of platform and kind of getting into using that. And even on social media, you know, being okay with asking questions if you're not sure of how to do something. I've always said as a student when I was here, and even now, I'm always open to answering people's questions and educating people, because the more that I can help educate, the more that all of you can also learn and go out and educate other people that you encounter, to talk about how important it is to use things to make media more accessible and inclusive. And again, many people use different accessibility features, and some people are more sensitive to flashing things like captions that come across the screen. So you really have to be mindful of how you kind of provide the content and the media that you put out. So it's a funny story. I actually randomly came across someone's page that I actually follow, and I went to school with him. He was also an SFC graduate, and I never talked about alt text with him, but I came across his post and he actually used alt text. And it was really surprising because there's not many sighted people that actually use it. And it's good to do that, because again, you never know who's gonna come across your profile, your page, whatever you're doing. So I had reached out to him and I was like, hey, I really appreciate the fact that you're using alt text. You know, how did you find out about it? He was like, oh, I was just playing around with the settings on Instagram and I just came across it, and it was really easy for me to be able to start like adding alt text to my pictures, and from that point on he just started doing it. I want to go back to screen readers for a second, because I use a screen reader, like I mentioned. I use VoiceOver. Other people use other types of screen readers that they rely on, and they can be really helpful, and it's really helpful for me in my everyday life. Currently, I'm actually an accessibility tester. I test websites and mobile apps to see how accessible they are, and oftentimes I run into a lot of issues with using websites and mobile apps. So I find that knowing when to kind of ask people for help is also really important. And for those of you who, like I said, are on social media, filmmakers, content creators, whatever you're doing, really try to look into different things that you can start using on your profiles and on your social media platforms. I don't know how many of you want to be filmmakers and kind of, go into that field, but if you do, now is a great way to start, because now you can kind of say, I'm in this school where I'm a comm major, if you are a comm major, and I have the ability to, create these films and work on these different media things. So now is the perfect way to start to kind of like test it out and see how it works for you and how it works for other people. Because even though you may be posting and creating things that you think, oh, like only sighted people are gonna view this, that's not always the case. That's not always the case for a lot of the social media things.
Thank you. All right. So thank you for that. And just to piggyback of what you just said, this idea that so many of our social media apps, it's really just it is embedded. Accessibility is embedded. Certainly all text. Twitter had a big rollout. Instagram does it too. But as we discussed last week with the takeover of Twitter, one of the first teams that Elon Musk laid off was the accessibility team. So it's really important that maybe just users keep doing and keep implementing these kind of, because it is really easy to do, that you keep doing it despite maybe teams in the back end not necessarily watching out for it so much more.